Hello and welcome back into another episode of The Hard Fowl. I'm your host, Pearson Fowler. With me, as always, from GamecockCentral.com, Collyn Taylor. It's been a week of maybe strained voices. I feel like, at least for me, my voice has slowly been going all week. And it's Thursday morning. I'm a little bit sleepy. Slept in this morning. Did not go to the gym. So I'm just kind of dragging.
Yeah.
And you got back late from Athens last night. So I'm worried that this is going to be a little bit low energy. And the game wasn't even all that exciting last night. But are you like alert and ready to go?
Yeah.
Are you someone that can get by on 6 hours of sleep?
I probably don't look like it. I probably look like I'm strolling into my 8:30 class hungover, which I've never done in college.
This is the first time I've seen you wear a hat.
Yeah. So this is, I look like the hungover college student at this point. But I feel good. I have my coffee. I'm ready to rock and
there you go.
Rock and roll.
How do you take your coffee?
Just cream.
Just
do
cream?
Like French vanilla creamer. And
all right. You Keurig?
I have a Keurig,
drip,
yeah.
French press? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I have a Keurig. I don't have the time
nice
to
and
do
easy.
French press.
Yeah.
You know.
Too much work on a
I
morning
like
like
it.
this.
Don't get me wrong, but when I'm all about efficiency, and when I can make a cup in 2 minutes.
Yeah, you can make a cup while you're doing something else.
Yes.
Which is nice.
Which is the nice part.
Do you have a brand you prefer?
No, whatever's on sale.
Just whatever? Okay.
Whatever's on sale.
Cool. Very good.
All
right. Well, yeah, you needed it because you got back late from Athens last night, but you were in Athens. South Carolina won convincingly, more convincingly than the 75-59 scoreline would indicate. This is another wire-to-wire win for South Carolina. You know, just another SEC game, another opportunity for South Carolina to clear the benches at the end of the game, and not because there was a brawl, but just because they were up by 1,000,000 points. Never really competitive, this one. Georgia couldn't score. South Carolina's defense was absolutely stifling. The offense, I wouldn't even say was like humming necessarily. They had some nice stretches, had some really nice plays. The ball movement looked good and crisp for the most part in stretches of the game. Another game where they probably could have scored 90 but took their foot off the gas a little bit. But Carolina took care of business. I expected Carolina to win this game. I thought they would. Certainly, obviously thought that they could. Didn't necessarily think it would happen like this, but I don't know why, because they've done this many times against inferior teams in SEC play.
Yeah, I mean, if you had told me Georgia wouldn't hit a field goal would hit one field goal the first 15 minutes of the game, had 5 points at the 5-minute mark of the first half, I would have said, man, that got ugly pretty damn quick. And South Carolina led by as many as 24. Then Georgia went on when I'm looking at it, a 10-2 run to end the game. It was just one of those where South Carolina looked like the better team. They were the better team, and the score reflected as such.
Better team, top to bottom. What was always going to be the difference maker was Anthony Edwards. So I guess I'll ask it to you like this. Were you more surprised that Georgia didn't hit a field goal for whatever that stretch was? You said, I don't remember the exact amount of time. Or that Anthony Edwards didn't make his first field goal until under 3 minutes to go in the first half, and that even his first points didn't come until like 6 or 7. He hit a couple of free throws. He hit 2 pairs of free throws before he made his first bucket, and the first pair of free throws was like maybe 7 minutes to go in the first half or something like that.
If you had told me that before the game, I would have been very shocked. But within the flow of the game, he looked like he was pressing. South Carolina got out to that early lead. I think it was like 4-0, and then they kind of expanded from there, and he just looked like he didn't know what to do.
Completely disengaged.
Yeah, and it's because South Carolina threw a lot of stuff at him, and he was jacking up threes. He was trying. I mean, he didn't look like Anthony Edwards, and that's good. That's give South Carolina a lot of credit for that, for devising this defensive game plan to try to. He's not gonna not score, but to hold him under his scoring average in SEC play, I think is pretty telling for where this team is defensively.
And he just didn't have the ball that much. South Carolina did a really good job of keeping it out of his hands. My roommate was asking, what number he was after the first 5 minutes of the game, because it wasn't readily apparent which one of these guys was supposed to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. So Frank Martin said, obviously, before the game, he wasn't going to disclose Carolina's defensive strategy for how to slow down Edwards, which they did marvelously, as well as anybody's done in conference play other than the Flu. Which is not a team, in fact. So
good job.
Good job, Carolina.
South Carolina's defense is on par with the Flu.
Influenza. He also didn't disclose too much after the game, since South Carolina gets to play Georgia again. You want to keep some of those secrets in-house, close to the vest. From what you saw, you're keen basketball watching. I haven't watched a lot of college basketball. You definitely know more about basketball than I do. What did you see that Carolina was doing that was so effective in slowing down Edwards? Or was it just Edwards not playing well?
I think it was a little mixture of both. His shot wasn't falling from three, which hurt him. And he said it even after the game. He had to drive, and South Carolina is so good on help defense on dribble drive penetration that they just couldn't do anything with the ball, and he would turn it over, and they made him look pedestrian. He was inefficient. He missed 9 of his 13 field goals. Half of his points came from the free throw line, which that's good, but when you're only hitting 4 of 13 from the field, it's less than good. So they just kind of just threw the kitchen sink at him. Jermaine obviously matched up on him for the most part in that game, but Keyshawn Bryant defended him for a couple possessions. Trey Hannibal had him for a couple possessions. TJ Moss, when he was in there, if he got switched, guarded him a little bit. Mike Kotsar had a great defensive possession against him at the end of the first half. When you're playing a basketball game, you kind of get, when it's matched up like that, you have all these scouting reports, and through the flow of the game, you can kind of tell how a guy's guarding you. Whether it's, he's not letting me go left, not letting me go right, he's sagging here with the help defense, whatever. South Carolina never let him get comfortable in that regard because you're throwing so much at him, and everybody defends a little differently and has different strengths and weaknesses. He just never got truly comfortable, it looked like, with the plan of attack against whoever was guarding him, because there were 4, 5, 6 guys that had a defensive possession against him.
Yeah, and I expected to see multiple different guys take a crack at him. I thought that would be more of like a, okay, he beat you 2 or 3 possessions in a row, now you got to try somebody else. But it was more like wherever he was matched up, like if there was a transition opportunity and guys were cross-matched, it was, they were kind of fine hanging with whoever was on him. I remember one early possession where Keyshawn Bryant did a really good job. They were trying to, get him the ball, well above the three-point line, and Keyshawn Bryant just did a great job, denying the ball.
I think Georgia turned it over on that possession, too. They traveled.
So it's like, well, we can't get Anthony Edwards the ball. There's nothing else we can do, said all the other
That's kind of Georgia in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, we don't know.
Were you surprised at how much man Carolina played? No?
I kind of figured they'd play some man. That's their bread and butter. Now, if Anthony had gotten hot and Edwards was hitting, had 2, 3, 4 threes at halftime, then yeah, you probably switch to a little bit more zone. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. And again, that's their base. So I guess I wasn't surprised to see them start with that. But I heard a couple people say during the week, maybe try a little box and one, maybe just and just in the interest of throwing different looks at them, like man, and then you have like 5 straight possessions of zone, and then 5 straight possessions of a 2-3, and then 5 straight possessions of a box and one, and then you're back to man, just to kind of keep them off balance. They didn't even really need to do that. I just thought we would see more of it, and maybe that's still in Frank's back pocket for maybe next time if Anthony Edwards is hitting some of those outside shots.
Could you imagine a box and one in college?
I mean,
I've never seen it run. I mean, Nick Nurse obviously does it well and whatnot, but like, could you imagine that in college?
So you've never seen that in college?
I think Frank's maybe run it once or twice.
There was a time earlier this year, and I keep meaning to ask you about it. I think it's come up on my local show a couple times, where I swear Carolina ran it for like 2 possessions.
Yeah,
with Levesque on the floor.
My roommate asked about it. He goes,
6 games ago or something.
Yeah, and I would love to see a team just
roll with it.
Like make that their defensive identity, where it's like Michigan obviously was 1-3-1 for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
Syracuse has their 2-3 Virginia Pack line. Let's have a team set up and do box and one.
I wonder if that's in his back pocket. I mean, hopefully for Carolina's sake, you don't have to bust it out.
This team's good enough to do it.
Yeah,
the personnel to run it.
It's amazing how well they've continued to play defensively in the absence of Justin Minaya.
Yes,
and it hasn't even been. I don't know. It's not even necessarily been like one great contribution, kind of covering that up. Like, Frank has still been good. He collected 9 rebounds last night. He looked really good, very active on the glass. I don't know. He only scored 3 points, but one of his best games of the season by far. Dished a couple of dimes as well. Had a steal. Just looked really engaged. Only 3 fouls. We're used to Frank getting into foul trouble. Yes, that didn't necessarily happen last night, which was tremendous. It's like everyone has just elevated their defensive game like 5%. And it's, by and large, been able to compensate for not having Minaya.
And they were energetic. Give them credit. They were energetic about it. They were getting to loose balls. They were forcing turnovers. They just looked, they were flying to the ball. And you didn't see that last week against Ole Miss when Minaya was out, and they kind of took that emotional hit. You saw that a little bit against A&M. that's what South Carolina defense is kind of predicated on.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you see the results. I mean, they forced, 19 turnovers, I think it was?
Yeah, 19 turnovers.
19 turnovers.
Including, I think it was like 10 in the first 10 minutes when Carolina absolutely just took that game by its haunches and said, we are not letting you get away from us.
And they had 25 points off turnovers to Georgia's 4. Like, they got out and they pedal meeting metal went. And that worked against a Georgia. They've found a way. They've done this a lot, and give them credit for it. They found a way to win different ways. They can beat you in the half court, but then if you want to get out and run and space the floor, they can go out there and run and space the floor too.
So that's like what 1.25 points per possession in terms of the transition opportunities that Carolina is able to score on. Meanwhile, it's like a third of a point per possession for Georgia.
Yeah,
there's 4 transition points on. So the transition defense, excellent. We can talk about that. But for me, that the disparity in the transition game last night, obviously this was the A.J. Lawson game. He's officially back. He's been playing better. He's been back, but this was like now I'm going to be the best player on the court. A lot of that was those transition opportunities. I haven't seen A.J. push the pace like he did last night since, midway through non-con play. Even though he's been playing better, this was the A.J. that finished the freshman season looking like someone that had NBA potential and someone that showed flashes of it early in the season. I mean, he didn't care. He had 1-on-2s, he had 2-on-3s, where he was at a disadvantage, and he was just going to the rack. He was getting fouled. He was finishing. He was pushing it. That was the difference. He set the tempo for this game. I know Jermaine Couisnard's the mouthpiece. Mike Kotsar had a great game. Last night was A.J. Lawson's show. He was spectacular. 20 points, 7 of 10 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3, 4 of 5 from the free throw line, including getting fouled, taking a 3-pointer early in the game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. Wait for it. I need to put music underneath this because it's so beautiful, just like a choir of heavenly angels or a drum roll. No turnovers.
Boom.
AJ, great work. Continued great work not turning the ball over.
Yeah, and compared to the NBA lottery pick in Anthony Edwards, who went 16 points, decent comparison there, on 4 of 13 shooting, 0 of 7 from 3, perfect from the line, 8 for 8, only 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 1 block, minus 22.
Wah, wah.
And Lawson was a plus 16 last night.
I don't know how many of his points came in transition or how many of the opportunities that he created for him and his teammates came in transition, but it was just that is where he is at his best, and it was just great to see him get back to it last night.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you need from AJ, and I think I wrote it in my instant analysis. When he's aggressive, shockingly, his game goes along with it, and you saw that a little bit.
The efficiency was fantastic. 7 of 10 shooting. His backcourt partner, Jermaine Couisnard, had another good game. Obviously had a ton of defensive responsibilities. I don't know what the breakdown is, but I would guess probably
65%
of the possessions that Edwards was on the floor with Couisnard. Couisnard was guarding him. So not surprising to see his production take a little bit of a dip. He was still able to get to 14 points, just about his average in conference play. Not as efficient necessarily as you'd like. 5 of 13 from the floor. He did hit 3 of his 6 3-pointers, made his free throw, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, but he continues to be just over 1. Like the amount of one, I guess last game he was 1 for 1. I think he had 3 assists and 3 turnovers against Texas A&M, but he always seems to be, even if it's just a tick, a little bit over 1. Great game for Couisnard. He's good. He's just good.
He's good.
That's it. Just a very, very good starting point guard in SEC play. He's got 7 more games unless he really drops off over that span of time. I think it's fair to expect him to be in the conversation for all SEC in the preseason next year.
Yeah, and it's very rare for Frank Martin to compare a guy who's 19 years old to a Sindarius Thornwell. And he's starting to do that a lot more with Jermaine. A lot more. And that just speaks, he's not where he needs to be defensively. And Frank Martin said that after the Georgia game last night. But there's just this F you, I'm better than you kind of air to him that good basketball players have. Hell, he took a shoulder to the head, left the game, came back, and then hit 2 dagger threes when Georgia was making a run to end their momentum and push their lead back to 16 or 17 or 18 or whatever it was.
And for the second time this season.
He blew a kiss at somebody.
That's his signature move now.
He blew a kiss at somebody.
He's got to be careful. Didn't he blow a kiss at Auburn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they won this time. Yeah.
They won this time, so I guess he learned his lesson.
I asked him about it after the game. And I was like, Jermaine, before we start, I was like, did you blow a kiss at somebody? And he kind of smiled. I was like, yeah. I was like, did he say anything to you? And he's like, he mouthed something. He said something to me. I didn't hear what it was, but I heard him say something. And then obviously steps up and hit it and then blows the kiss. And you need a guy like that on your team. You need someone that's just going to go out there and play with a little bit of swagger about him.
That's why he's the mouthpiece.
Hell, Mike Kotsar stared down Anthony Edwards a little bit at the end of the first half. Like, this team is just, you're starting to see the trickle-down effects of what Jermaine brings in terms of just personality. It's bleeding into different guys, and that's what a good leader does. That's what a guy like a Sindarius does to a team. And I hate using the same breath as Sindarius, who I think is a top, 2 or 3 player all time at South Carolina. But he's starting to get that kind of air around him.
If you are going to have a Sindarius Thornwell type career, having a freshman campaign like this for Jermaine is a great way to start. We can say it like that. We don't have to say he's Sindarius or he's going to be Sindarius, but
he's presenting Sindarius-like quality.
Yes, early in his career, and it's fantastic. And you're right, like the way that it's spilled over into everybody else's performance. You mentioned Mike Kotsar, a little bit of a stare down. Seeing that kind of dog, that kind of fight in Mike, which, I mean, by and large has been there this year. He's been more aggressive in every part of his game. Obviously, we spent a lot of time last time talking about his legitimate candidacy for SEC Defensive Player of the Year. His offensive game continues to evolve and continues to be impressive how he attacks the rim offensively. He's attacking the boards better than he ever has, and that has directly resulted in him having a career high in points, career high in rebounds, career high in just about everything you want to look at. Another decent game for Mike. Another good game for Mike. He wasn't terribly efficient. He only shot 5 of 12, but he finished with 11 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, only 1 turnover, only 1 foul, in 29 minutes, which led the team again. Good help defense, good positional defense, basically did everything that he was asked to do. And it's nice that he's been able to settle into kind of 11-6-ish kind of territory with really good defense, a steal, maybe a couple blocks or a couple steals and a block. And it's been more than enough to propel Carolina to really big victories, whether it's against, good teams on the road against Arkansas or whether it's just 25-point victories. Mike's kind of giving you what he's going to give you, and the team has figured out how to not require too much of him. He's already elevated his game, and early in the season, he kind of had to for Carolina to win. Yeah. Now, it's not exactly that it's a luxury, but the rest of the guys have figured out how to elevate their games, I guess, both to complement Mike and allow what Mike does to complement them. And as much as this was the A.J. Lawson game, and as much as Jermaine Couisnard continues to be kind of the heart of this team or the soul of this team, Mike is still the fulcrum, of all the action that you see, whether it's, getting that first paint touch, causing the defense to collapse a little bit, creating open looks or open driving lanes for everybody else, or everything that he does defensively. It's just been great to watch. Another solid game for Mike.
Yeah, and I think that if you told me that he was going to be averaging, let's see what Mike Kotsar is averaging, because if you had told me that at the beginning of the season, I would have said, no way.
Or this team's 23-1.
Yeah, he's averaging 10.3 points, 6.4 rebounds, 2.1 assists, shooting 51.5% from the field, and has a win share of 3. In conference play, he's averaging 10.9 points, uptick, 5.2 or 7.1 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 1.7 steals, 1.3 blocks, while shooting 52% from the field.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job by you.
Yeah. Come on. That's good. That's what you need from Mike Kotsar. That's what you needed from Mike Kotsar since his freshman year.
Mm-hmm. And you've gotten, but just for 4
snippets.
games a year.
Yeah. He puts it all into 1 or 2 little here or there games. Mm-hmm. But now he's doing it consistently over the course of a game.
Yeah.
I feel over the course of the season.
Yeah. We're almost, I feel bad. I feel like we're a little broken recordy with Mike, but it's all the same things, but it's all the same good things. And it continues to be impressive. And it's not surprising anymore because this is just who he is now. I mean, Carolina's 24 games into the season. This is who he is. It's so cool. It's really nice. It's part of the reason that Chris Silva is my favorite South Carolina basketball player ever. Not because I think he's the best, not because I think he's better than Sindarius, although I think he's already shown that he has more pro potential in terms of just like the longevity of his career. Like the most pro potentials of any Gamecock since like Alex English, because like
Ronaldo Balkman says hello. First round pick Ronaldo Balkman.
First round pick, but then I mean he's still like one of the most derided like.
Oh, I know.
Picks.
I was just giving Ronaldo Balkman a little grief.
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that. But yeah, point is, I'm not saying that I think the Silva is better. Although when towards the end of last year, we did kind of an all-decade show on our local show, and it was like, who is basically the best player in each respective sport for the decade? And Sindarius Thornwell obviously ran away with men's basketball, and I was like, well, he should win it, but should he run away with it because Chris Silva, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I'm rambling. I only bring this up to say a huge reason why he is my favorite is because I love watching a player develop from someone that is so raw, so unrefined, to someone that is a two-time SEC first-team All-Defense and SEC Defensive Player of the Year, first-team All-SEC, NBA player. I love the stories of development. And Mike Kotsar, while he wasn't as raw as Chris Silva starting, didn't have just like the fun, freakish athleticism that just made him a joy to watch from the moment he first stepped on the court. It's just really fun to watch a player transform and become more confident and learn how to do all the little things. And Mike's never going to be an elite athlete. He's never going to be an elite leaper. He just kind of does everything pretty well. He hit 2 jumpers last night, one from the free throw line, one from kind of like the foul line extended. He just does everything pretty well and quietly. He's clearly worked hard to get to this point to improve his free throw shooting, improve his mentality, his aggression. And it's just a fun story and has been to watch. I mean, like the first 3 years were almost frustrating because it's like, okay, are you going to get better or not? And then the year that everyone kind of gave up on him getting better.
Spoiler alert, he did.
Yeah, spoiler alert, he did. And it's been a blast. Again, different than Silva, but I'm a sucker for those kinds of stories.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you finally saw the light turn on for him and whatever puzzle piece was missing fall into place, and give him credit. He came out and mentally got it together, and he's playing better because of it.
Finally got a little bit of a bounce-back game from Keyshawn. That's kind of what we've been looking for. My roommate and I were sitting there watching the game last night, and he was like, if Keyshawn can do this pretty much every game for the rest of the season, you still feel pretty good about Carolina's chances. He added 12 and 5. He shot 4 of 5 from the field, 4 of 4 from free throw line. Good job, Keyshawn.
Which is huge, yeah.
They popped the graphic up on TV last night when he was at the free throw line for the first time, and well, my roommate's making a lot of appearances in this podcast. He was like, they fouled him while he was shooting, and then it was like kind of an air ball, and I think Frank would have grabbed the offensive rebound or something like that, and he was like, I wish they just let Frank get the rebound rather than, Keyshawn going to the free throw line, because that's 0 points. And then it was like, he's a 62% free throw shooter on the year, which didn't sound right. But I guess it is, because they had the graphic, and he made all 4 of them. So good job for him, attacking the glass, big rebounds, steal. A couple times he elevated for a dunk. One of them he got fouled. Maybe both of them he got fouled. Maybe one of them he just missed. I don't know. For him, he's had a couple good games this year. Kentucky, there have been a couple other ones. That's the only one that really sticks out in my mind. Not as interested in just like a good 12 and 5 game, but if he can have now like 3 or 4 12 and 5 games in a row, that's what you're looking for. That's what you're going to need from him. I guess another plus is, he played 21 minutes. He played pretty good defense. He looked engaged kind of the whole time he was out there. It wasn't as much touch and go as I feel like it has been in some other games, but it's also probably easy to have a good game where you're engaged and look good and look engaged when you're winning by 24 for most of the game.
Yeah, and playing a very putrid defensive team in Georgia. So that's what you need. That's a good confidence booster for a guy like Keyshawn who needed to see the ball go in the basket. So you feel good about Keyshawn right now, and he looked engaged. He looked energetic and looked very energetic getting a technical foul at the end of the game.
Yeah.
That is,
what happened? I didn't
don't
really
know.
show it on TV.
Like they teed him up pretty quick.
He was checking out of the game.
No, he dunked or hit a turnaround layup.
Yeah,
I think he mouthed off.
Okay.
And he got teed up.
And then Frank took him out?
And then, immediately. Because where we sit, it's kind of like where we sit at Colonial Life, where you really can't see one half of the court. that's blocked by the basket. So when he did that, it was kind of blocked by us. You saw him turn and say something. You couldn't see what, but the ref was pretty quick to, hit the whistle, and Keyshawn, didn't even wait. Yeah. It was like, I'm going to the, I got to the.
Yeah, I know it was like 6 minutes ago or maybe
if that,
less.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, but that needs to stop. Frank was very not happy with him about that. But going 4 for 5 from the field, he needs to get to the free throw line. After last night, he's averaging 2.5 free throws a game in SEC play, which is, that needs to be better.
Yeah. Do you happen to know what he averaged last year, or can you access that readily?
I cannot access that.
Okay. Because, that's got to be, especially if he's actually going to make his free throws, he needs to be getting to the line. And that also is just sort of a sign of a aggressive mentality.
Yeah, you see it with AJ Lawson a little bit.
Yeah.
So in SEC play last year, Keyshawn averaged a little bit less, 2.3 free throw attempts per game. Marginal. He's averaging.
Yeah.
So you'd like to see that number go up to maybe 4 or 5,
definitely
5 or 6, 6 or 7, compared to what it is right now. Right now, he's averaging 2.8 free throws per game.
And if like last night was kind of what you need. It's 4 free throw attempts in 21 minutes. If he plays another 10 minutes, that gives him another 2 free throws. 6 free throw attempts in 30 minutes is probably about where he needs to be.
And he hit 80% of his shots, which is what you want from him. And he took good shots within the offense. Hauled in a lot of offensive rebounds.
It feels like he's settled like a few too many times.
Yeah. He didn't have an offensive rebound, but he got a few putbacks here or there, had a dunk. You need that energy from him because AJ's going to, apparently now, AJ's going to give you 18 to 20 every night.
Yeah. It's not always going to be on 7 to 10, but AJ is kind of settled into that. Well, it's kind of it's a luxury now for Carolina because you're getting 34, 36 points a night out of your backcourt, like pretty comfortably.
Yeah, and for everyone was kind of in that slump at the beginning of the year, and Frank even acknowledged it, and now everyone's kind of playing pretty darn well right now. So you're getting good minutes from Lawson, from Kusnard, from Frank.
Good game, Frank. 2 straight good games.
Plus 11. So from Kotsar, from Bryant.
And led the team in rebounds, did Frank.
Jalen McCurry finished with 8 points and 5 rebounds and 2 assists.
And a steal and a block.
And 2 turnovers. 1-to-1 assist
Man,
turnover.
He is, I thought it was Frank because Frank fouls a lot. I also thought it was Wilden's because he tied the record for shortest amount of time to foul out with Chris Silva. But Jalen McCreary is definitely the spiritual successor to Chris Silva in a couple of ways. One, really fascinating athleticism. I could very much see him turning into a Chris Silva type of player where it's energetic rebounding, shot blocking, impressive, versatile defense. I don't necessarily expect him to have the same kind of offensive game that Chris Silva did by the end of his career because you could never necessarily project that kind of development. But the real thing that reminds me of Chris Silva for McCreary is how many, I don't want to say totally unlucky because he doesn't always put himself in the best positions, but there's a lot of contact that I feel like referees let go for a lot of other players, but never for Jalen.
Yeah.
He seems a little bit like 2 or 3 of the fouls last night. He had 4, and 2 or 3 of them I was like, man, that really didn't look like a foul.
Yeah, and there are just some guys that Chris Silva went into the game and the referees knew this guy's a habitual fouler.
It was a foul for him checking in.
Yeah, some guys have that reputation and they get fouls because of it. That they don't get the benefit of the doubt because the refs know, okay, this guy's a habitual offender.
Mm-hmm.
And I think fair or unfair, Jalen kind of gets that moniker. And he plays so out of control is not the right word, but
it's a little wild.
Bull in a china shop a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't help his cause when he's going to try to defend somebody and looks out of control. The refs are probably going to call that foul on you.
Yeah. Now, if he can do that and still stay in the game for 20 minutes and still put up an 8 and 5 with a couple of assists and a steal and a block, and
while shooting 50% from the field,
yeah. Well, otherwise good positional defense. There was a block on I think it was on Anthony Edwards that looked an awful lot like a charge, and you wonder if it weren't Anthony Edwards would they have actually called that a block because it looked like he was in position. But point is, he still has a huge piece of his game, not fouling and actually staying on the court that needs to be resolved. And he's still finding ways to be very, very productive. He's so active around the glass. had a nice putback. It was a big putback jam, and I feel like he had another putback where he just cleaned up the rebound and the offensive glass, and then just like kind of laid it in over the top. But he's a really, really interesting piece for Carolina going forward.
Yeah, and I think that you're optimistic, even this season and on, that he can develop into a guy that can start for you as maybe a sophomore and definitely as a junior or senior. Go out there and earn 30 starts in a season, because he's playing like he's a very, very impact player moving forward for South Carolina.
Frank's been really good. Otherwise, I think Carolina might be. I think Frank Martin has said that he likes Wildens and Jalen coming off the bench just because it's more comfortable for them now. But when you're projecting ahead, we did this a little bit in the last podcast. What is Carolina going to look like next year? Obviously, you think probably Wildens is going to slide into the micro role just because he's a more traditional big.
Yeah,
and
you
Frank
need to have some rim protection,
right? And Frank is a guy that has experience. He's shown flashes of having a good offensive game. He's never really had the opportunity to do it consistently, so that's kind of an interesting piece of the puzzle. But if South Carolina wants to roll out there with a really defense heavy starting five, I think that Jalen is even though Frank's got just a whole year. He's a sophomore. Yeah. A whole extra year experience, and he's starting now. And Frank's even playing well. I feel like Jalen is even still making a pretty compelling case for being a starting quality player.
Yeah, and how good would it be to have a guy like that coming off your bench as a sophomore? It's kind of like that clip from LeBron when Kawhi checks into the finals, where he's like shit. Like when that's checking in off the bench, and you have a guy like Trey Hannibal who could be coming off the bench, that's a pretty good lineup that doesn't even get to start. So I know we're looking way, way, way ahead, and there's still 7 games left, and there's still a lot to play for this season. But you feel good about where the South Carolina basketball program is just in terms of talent for the next 2-3 years.
Now for Trey Hannibal, 19 minutes last night, just 4 points. He did have 6 rebounds, no assists. He did have a steal, a couple of fouls, a couple of turnovers. His minutes load has increased in a way that we had hoped would happen, but didn't necessarily foresee. Since SEC play started, he's only had 2 games where he played single-digit minutes. All the rest, he's played double digits. He played 13 minutes against Tennessee, 16 against Vandy, 16 against Arkansas, 12 against Missouri, 18 against Ole Miss, a season high, career high, 23 against A&M, and then 19 last night against Georgia. So his workload is increasing. It feels like he's hitting a little bit of a freshman wall here at the end of the season, which makes sense. I don't remember if Frank was talking about it in one of those mic'd up segments during the game. Yeah, maybe it was after the game where he was just talking about how much of an adjustment it is for these young players to all of a sudden be playing 30 plus high level basketball games in a for them a relatively condensed schedule. It's kind of hard, the physical toll on it. And if you see a guy's minutes ticking up, it makes sense that his productivity would drop off a little bit. But you look at let's see, we'll just do the 3-game stretch from Vanderbilt where he had 4 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. The next game against Arkansas, he scored 11 points, had 3 rebounds, and then Missouri where he was 3 rebounds, 3 points, 2 rebounds, and assist. He had a nice stretch in there. Even that Kentucky game before, he was able to grab 4 rebounds in just 9 minutes and play pretty good defense. And then since then, it's been 5 points, 3 rebounds, no assists, a turnover, 3 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 turnovers, 4 points, 6 rebounds, no assists, 2 turnovers on 0 of 1 shooting, 2 of 3, 1 of 7, 2 of 7. The productivity, the efficiency has dropped off a little bit. I think it's fair for that to be, expected as a freshman. But do you think that's all this is? Just sort of a little bit of a freshman wall?
Yeah, I think so. And you look at some of the guards he's played, over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. He's played Saban Lee, Mason Jones. He's played Missouri didn't have that many good guards, but Drew Smith, pretty okay. Breein Tyree and Devontae Shuler. Texas A&M doesn't have any good guards. And then Anthony Edwards and Wheeler. You're playing some good competition, and yes, he needs to be more efficient, and yes, he's probably hitting a wall a little bit, but this is just a freshman having some growing pains in the SEC, and the talent's there. It's just a matter of kind of getting his feet under him and continuing for the game to slow down, because it still looks like he wants to go a million miles an hour like he did in high school.
And Frank's still trusting him.
Yes.
He's playing more minutes now than he ever has. So even though the efficiency's dipped a little bit, I guess we should just trust that Frank is trusting him.
Yeah.
Jair Bolden had a not very good game. Just 1 of 6 shooting, 1 of 4 from 3. 3 points. He did have 1 turnover. Let's see, did he have an assist? Yeah, he had 1 assist. Not a great game for Jair, but nice for Jair to be able to have a nothing kind of game off the bench in South Carolina, still win by 16.
Finish +5.
There you go. Good job, Jair. Way to finish +5. TJ Moss did play 15 minutes, did not score, 1 assist. Hey, he didn't turn the ball over.
+5.
+5. There you go. Who wasn't plus in this game? Anybody? Maybe some of those bench mob guys.
Trey Anderson was not.
Yeah, because Carolina was up by like 21, and then all those guys came in, and Georgia went on a little 6-0 run or something to finish the game.
Hannibal was -8.
Ooh, -8.
Nathan Nelson -5, and Mike Green -1.
Bummer. Okay. Well, comprehensive victory.
But Hannibal was in there late, too,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was in that last group. But Carolina won almost every single category in this game. Obviously, the most important one, the score, 75-59. They outshot Georgia by a significant margin. They shot 44.5% from the field, about their average. Georgia shot 34.5%. Another, again, stalwart defensive performance from Carolina. 35% from 3 for Carolina, 12.5%, 3 of 24 for Georgia. Georgia did win the free throw shooting battle. Carolina 11-19, Georgia 20 of 26. There you go, Carolina, 58%. That's more what you're used to. Get out of here with this 75% nonsense, giving everybody hope.
But they won the game.
They did.
Shooting 11 for 19.
And they crushed the glass, 45 rebounds this game for South Carolina.
It was brutal.
To just 33 for Georgia, including 14 to 8 on the offensive glass. South Carolina, 17 assists to just 9 for Georgia. 17 assists on 29 made baskets. That's a good number.
They were like 4 for 4 their first ones. Then went through kind of a cold spell and then just.
And there were some really nice sequences where it was just like.
Oh, their ball movement was great.
You know, like a couple, like sequences of 3 or 4 passes leading to a bucket where the ball doesn't even hit the ground, and it just, I mean, it's beautiful.
It's like, like the Mike Kotsar pass to AJ early with like in the dunk.
Mm-hmm.
I just sat there and I was like, holy hell, like that was.
Jalen's assist, or I guess he had 2. So one of his assists was a beautiful little give and go with AJ. You know, he's standing there on the block, he catches it, and then just perfect little pocket pass in between his defender and AJ's defender, who was right on his hip, and then a nice finish from AJ. But it was a lot of really nice sequences. So 17 assists on 29 made baskets. Carolina had 10 steals to just 3 for Georgia. 3 blocks for Carolina. Georgia had 4. That was one of 2 categories where they won, I guess. And then Carolina only turned the ball over 12 times, forced 19 of them for Georgia. And we talked about the fast break points. Comprehensive, dominant. Anything else to say about Carolina smoking Georgia and Stegman?
No.
Good win?
They were good.
Yeah. What was anyone at the game last night?
Anyone in terms of
like over under 3,500 people?
Oh God. Let's see what their announced attendance was 88.57.
Were there
that
8,000
isn't accurate?
people in there?
That isn't accurate. No.
Nope.
Probably closer to 4.
Okay.
3 or 4.
Right. So maybe a little.
It got loud at times.
For what?
Yeah, Mecole Hardman. That guy. They know Mecole Hardman was there. That was the biggest cheer of the night.
Super Bowl winning wide receiver Mecole Hardman.
That was the biggest. Yeah,
that's funny.
That was the biggest cheer of the night. And that happened at the under 8 timeout the first half.
Y'all, if you haven't, go look at the game flow chart on ESPN. It's nice. It's just 2 parallel lines that are very far apart for the entire game.
The win probability at KenPom is just as interesting.
The win probability before the game said Georgia had a 53% chance to win.
They were a
was
favorite in that game.
-2.5. Yeah.
Georgia was like a 2.5 point favorite. Yeah.
It's because of Anthony Edwards and because Road.
Home.
But I also said, you and I said very early this year on this podcast,
don't bet South
Carolina. Bet on South Carolina basketball. But I also said on my radio show yesterday, +2.5 for the better team feels good. If you have a gambling problem, 1, get help, but 2, the better team getting +2.5.
Hammer it.
Sounds nice. I'm glad it didn't lead people astray. If anybody took my non-advice,
I never gamble on games. That's just
definitely not. And we'll definitely never gamble on the team that either you cover or you support. That's always a bad idea.
Yeah, and I know that even if I did start to gamble, I would never do it on South Carolina.
No,
because I cover them. But no, no.
Nope. All right. No. Carolina's got Tennessee on Saturday. They're 15-9 and 7-4 in conference. Last time they played Tennessee, they should have won.
Yes.
They played terribly. and they had the ball at the very end of the game with a chance to win it. And A.J. Lawson went full midseason slump. Head down.
Go.
Charged. Whoops. Carolina finished that game with 19 turnovers. They shot 20 of 61 from the floor, 2 of 13 from three-point land.
They missed, they went, 3 of 20 on dunks and layups, it felt like?
Yeah, they were just missing everything. So, on the surface, winnable game. That was up in Knoxville. Carolina can't really play worse than that. Justin and I had 0, so you don't have to worry about making up what he did in the first game.
I will say this about Justin in that game. He was really, really good defensively.
10 rebounds.
10 rebounds.
2 steals,
blocks.
3 blocks.
Yeah.
A.J. Lawson, 0 of 7, but he did make 4 free throws, so he finished with 4 points. That was before Jermaine Kusnarb was injected into the starting lineup. But he did finish with 15 points, 6 of 17 off the bench, added a couple assists, a couple steals, a couple rebounds. But anyway, you cut it. Not a great game for Carolina. Up in Knoxville, and still had a chance to win it. So you say, okay, well, there you go. Now Carolina's really got a chance to win it. Tennessee, not super. They've lost 4 of their last 6, including to A&M, but they did just beat Arkansas by 21.
Convincingly at home.
Wow. Yeah. So the back half, you can also say, it's hard to beat the same team twice. This feels a little trappy for Carolina.
Yes. South Carolina went 10 for 27 in that. On layups.
10 for 27 on dunks and layups?
Just on layups. They went 12 of 30 on dunks and layups.
Wow. Okay.
But yes, trap game. I'm sorry. I got caught up.
Why does it feel like that?
Because when you think of South Carolina and you look at the schedule, you're like, well, oh, hell, we got 2 games against Mississippi State and, LSU and another game against Anthony Edwards and Georgia and Alabama, That this stretch coming up with at State, LSU, home for Georgia, at Alabama, home for Mississippi State. That's the part where you look at it and you go, ugh. And then you kind of forget about this Tennessee team that's ranked in the top 60 in KenPom and has a chance on any given night to go out there and beat anybody, even on the road.
So they're higher in KenPom than Carolina?
Yes, by just 5. No, by 15.
Okay.
They're 58 and South Carolina's 73.
So this is going to be the Net and possibly KenPom rant podcast. So I'll save this for that. So that's curious.
Yes.
Tennessee is 14-10. Their best win of the season is
beat VCU,
Yeah.
top 50.
Is Washington still top 50?
They beat Alabama. No, Washington's 55th in KenPom.
Okay.
Beat Alabama and beat Arkansas. So you got 3 top 50 wins.
Okay.
South Carolina, on the other hand, I'll be interested. This is great podcasting.
We love doing live research.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean you, because I don't have good
Virginia's a
research like
fringe top 50. They're 51st in KenPom. Kentucky's obviously a top 50 team. Arkansas. South Carolina has, technically speaking, 2 top 50 KenPom wins. A fringe one in Virginia. So these 2 teams are pretty evenly matched, and they always have been, as Rick Barnes and Frank Martin play similar styles, and yeah.
So Carolina, I mean, it's weird because they have shown that they're a much better team than a lot of these teams in the SEC, just more talented, better, and that's why they beat Texas A&M by 1 million. That's why they beat Georgia by 1 million. That's why they beat Missouri by 1 million. That's why they beat Vanderbilt by 1 million. They're better than those teams, and yet they can obviously look like losing to pretty much any team on any given night. So it's not outrageous to say that Carolina and Tennessee are close to each other, because realistically they probably are. Maybe you could even say Tennessee's more talented. It's very much a toss-up kind of game. But I don't understand why South Carolina at 15-9 and 7-4 in conference is 15 spots lower than Tennessee at 14-10 and 6-5. And Carolina has better wins than Tennessee. And yes, you could say Tennessee has the head-to-head, but that's a game that literally comes down to a buzzer beater, or a buzzer beater that should have been.
There are a lot more. This obviously has to do with how they played the non-con. Tennessee is better offensively than South Carolina is. Not by a little bit. We're talking about 1.5 per 100 possessions. It's just how they played non-con. When you talk about them in terms of South Carolina's first in defensive efficiency in the SEC, Tennessee is 4th. South Carolina is 7th in offensive efficiency. They're 8th in offensive efficiency. Tennessee is 7th. I mean, this is just South Carolina's 5th in effective field goal percentage, Tennessee's 6th. It's just such a close. All of it is just so marginally. One team is marginally better than this team in one thing, and the other one's better at this. So it's like Tennessee just plays so much slower. So now South Carolina can control the tempo like they did against Georgia and play at their pace. They feel good.
All right, well, let's keep doing this because we're here, and then we can wrap up talking about Tennessee.
Are we going to do it?
Florida,
Okay.
the Florida Gators. So when you look at bracketology right now, which I'm not someone that's like, hey, I'm going to look at bracketology in August because that's stupid. Even sitting here on February 13th, it's like still very speculative.
Yeah, they still got 7 games to play.
They still have 7 games to play. A lot is going to happen.
Yes.
But it's at least worth looking to take the temperature. Right now, there are 5 SEC teams that are projected to get in the tournament, and Florida is considered a lock. Mississippi State is one of those like last teams in. South Carolina not even really in the conversation, which is fine.
Which is fair at this point.
It's fair. It's fair. There are a lot of things that affect that. There are a lot of things that are going to continue to affect that. Just because Carolina's not a bubble team now doesn't mean that they have no chance. But why, other than where they were ranked in the preseason, is Florida a lock at 15-9 and 7-4 in conference? Do those numbers sound familiar? They should, because that's exactly what South Carolina is. And what are Florida's marquee wins? Let's see. They lost to Florida State.
Xavier.
They beat Xavier. They lost to Butler. And their next best win, I guess they did beat Auburn.
Providence is an okay win. Beat Alabama in overtime, in double overtime. Beat Auburn.
Is that a better resume than South Carolina? Maybe they don't have the bad losses.
The only reason the bad losses are the things.
But the bad losses are the difference between an automatic, guaranteed lock 10 seed and a team that isn't even in the has work to do category.
Are we shocked that the net's stupid? No.
Okay, so explain, I guess, before the rant. I just need to know, I know pieces of it, but explain to me. You can be very sarcastic if you want to, but I just actually need to know how the net works.
Right.
What is the net?
The net is the metric that the tournament uses to determine whether a team is worthy of making it into the prestigious field of 64.
68.
Whatever.
7,000.
Yeah. So they take into account a lot of different things. Efficiency is one of those ones that they really harp on. They split the teams. You have 4 tiers of wins. You have a quad 1 win, which varies based on where you win the game. So like a quad 1 win at home is just 1 through 30 in the net. If you beat a team 1 through 30 in the net, it's a quad 1 win. 1 through 50 on a neutral court, it's a quad 1 win. 1 through 75 on the road, quad 1 win. So it splits it up like that. And South Carolina, so let's say, I don't know, Clemson. You beat Clemson, who is currently 83rd in the net. You beat Clemson on the road. That's a quad 2 win.
Close to a quad 1 win, though.
Yes, close to. I think they were at one point.
Yeah, they were for a little bit. And if they have to go up 8 spots, and that will once again be a quad 1 win for South Carolina.
Yes. Kentucky, when they beat Kentucky, slid down to like 33rd in the net. So there was a time where the Kentucky win at home and the Clemson win on the road looked like the same thing to the net. No.
Why?
Yeah, no. It's dumb.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really. It takes into account efficiency. So how a team plays over the course of a game. So let's say South Carolina plays really, really well offensively, demolishes, a Georgia team by 16 points. Sound familiar?
Oh, yeah, I kept saying 15 because I'm stupid, but it was 16.
16 points, let's say. Margin of victory is also something they take into account, and efficiency is something they take into account. The margin of victory only goes up to plus or minus 10. So if you beat a team by 10 points, the net looks at it as the same as beating a team by 45 points. But your efficiency numbers when you beat a team by 45 points are probably a lot better than when you beat a team by 10 points. So you're putting these two things on scales that are just uneven, and it can skew the data because of it. That's dumb.
So how does a team get a net ranking? Where does that come from? I know you said
So
some has to do with efficiency and record and margin of victory, but
they have an adjusted win percentage that they use. So a win at home, wins and losses on it. So if you win on a neutral site, it's +1 in your adjusted win percentage. You lose on a neutral court, it's -1. 1 for 1 on a neutral court. You win at home, it's plus 0.6 added to your adjusted win percentage. You lose at home, it's minus 1.4. Win on the road, plus 1.4. Lose on the road, minus 0.6. So it's stupid.
Is it based on opponent's record and like the record of your opponent's opponents? I'm trying to figure out why Georgia's top. Florida's top 50, right?
Yeah, in net. Oh yeah.
They're what, like 30 something?
48th.
Oh, they're 48th.
I think. Hold on. Command effing this. 38th.
38th. Okay, so Georgia.
They rose 6 spots last night. South Carolina did. They're 65th in the net now.
Okay, so now if Tennessee wins on Saturday, that's a quad 1 win for Tennessee.
If South Carolina stays in the top 75.
Yeah. It's contrived,
stupid.
but I'm trying to figure out how that's a compliment for South Carolina.
Yeah.
They're now a road.
No. They're moving. They're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
They were when I pull up my fancy.
They were like, wait, did they go up that much last night? I feel like they were like 74.
Well, they had a defensive efficiency of 80.1. That's going to help your net
so
ranking.
That on a 1-game basis can move you that much?
Oh, it swings so much, and that's the problem with it. This late into the season with so much sample size, you're swinging that much. There's that much variance.
Can we say that Florida beating Auburn at home and South Carolina beating Kentucky at home are roughly equivalent wins?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Both are top 25 teams. Both are. Yeah.
Even though Florida beat Auburn by more than South Carolina beat Kentucky, how much added weight does that give Florida? Because Florida actually won that game by 22, but it would only count as a 10-point win, is what you're telling me?
Yeah, in the eyes of the net.
Okay.
But not in the eyes of the efficiency, which is one of the biggest parts of the net, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Okay. All right. So that makes sense then if you say that.
That's why it weights more because of the net.
Right.
Because of the efficiency ratings that go along with it.
But South Carolina beat Virginia very comfortably in Charlottesville. Meanwhile, Florida's other best win is probably Xavier, and they won that one by 5, and that was also at home.
But South Carolina, their efficiency numbers weren't spectacular in
the Virginia game. Okay, so is it fair to say that those 2 wins combined would probably be roughly equivalent? Even if Carolina was less efficient, it was on the road and therefore should count for more and was a bigger margin of victory?
You'd think.
Okay.
I mean, it's just stupid.
So,
all of it's
I guess, I don't know. Maybe the 2 losses really
now
are
you're getting just as frustrated as I am.
No, I am. And maybe I'm missing the point. And like those 2 bad losses for Carolina and Stetson and Boston are enough to drop you 30 points in the net. But
yeah, I mean, when you look at the efficiency numbers there.
But Florida lost to Missouri. Missouri's bad. I don't. Is Connecticut bad? Connecticut's probably bad, right? I haven't looked at them for a single second this year. Connecticut they're 13-11. Okay, so they're not very good. And Florida lost to them too. That's different than Stetson, and it's different than Boston.
But they lost to Connecticut on the road and lost to Missouri on the road, so it hurts less in the net.
Oh gosh,
and because South Carolina lost to those 2 teams at home, it drags that net down. That adjusted win percentage. You get a minus 1.4. You get 2 minus 1.4s in non-con play. South Carolina's lost 4 home games.
So is there like an aggregate score? Like if South Carolina's 65 in net, is that because their high score is like 6,425 or something?
I don't know. I'm looking at this right now. So they got a win on the road last night. Their adjusted win percentage is 1.55, which is slightly over 1. After the road win. So that helps getting wins on the road. They're 6th of the season, by the way.
Which leads the SEC.
Leads the SEC. That's good, but when you have 1, 2, 3, 4 home losses, that drags that down a little bit. So I say net, but your margin there, your differential is +2 just in terms of that because you have 4 home losses and 6 road wins. And one of your road or one of your home losses was to a Stetson team that is currently better
in the 300s,
but 293rd.
Oh, okay, they're top 300. There you go.
Boston is 173rd.
Wow. But saying like top 300, that's like Clemson football logic. It's
there are 353 teams in Division I basketball.
But, that's what Clemson football fans say. They're like, oh, well, Clemson has more wins against the top 76 teams in the country than anybody. It's like, Carolina, look at all those wins against top 300.
Moving goalposts.
It's the cutoff. Yeah, exactly.
Moving goalposts.
That's exactly what it is. So is, in your estimation, well, actually, I'll ask it like this. What is the difference between the net, and this is what, your 3 or 4 of the net, and the RPI?
Yeah.
What's the difference between those two?
I don't know, like the full differences. The net puts a little bit more added weight on quads, splitting them up into tiers instead of saying, because I do agree that to a degree, beating Virginia on the road is a little bit more impressive than beating another top 50 team at home.
Yeah. I mean, look, quads are important. Never skip leg day, y'all.
Yeah. But to say that, to split these teams into tiers and have different tiers for different things, it's a little different. The RPI is a little bit easier to understand. I like using a little bit more of the efficiency metric if you're going to exclude the plus minus 10 thing in terms of margin of victory, margin of defeat. But now it encourages teams to run up scores. And that's what I don't like. And the RPI never really did that. So
because of the importance of efficiency numbers?
Because of the importance of efficiency stuff. So, yeah, I think it's obviously imperfect. Nothing you're going to throw out there is truly perfect. Ken Palm's not even perfect. Like they gave Georgia a 50-whatever chance to win the other day, and yeah,
and probably you're giving Carolina a similar chance to beat Tennessee on Saturday.
South Carolina has a 58% chance to beat Tennessee.
Okay, so a little bit higher than Georgia had to beat Carolina last night. So,
yeah. Now, you have to find a nice merge between the Ken Palm numbers and the baseball or basketball reference numbers.
Baseball season starts tomorrow.
If you think I look like a hungover college student now, talk to me on Wednesday, or talk to me on Thursday when I'm back from Mississippi State.
Yeah, I will. I will talk to you on Thursday. I guess we'll have to. Oh, you're going to Starkville?
Should be.
Cool. Very good. Well, then we'll plan on recording later Thursday or maybe Friday morning. We'll figure it out though.
But the net's stupid.
The net is stupid. That wasn't as fiery as I was expected, but that was very helpful.
I can drop an F-bomb if you want to. The net's fucking stupid. You know, there
we go. Now we can e-tag it, which we're probably going to have to do anyway. No, I appreciated your measured response because I feel like I understand it better now too, and I understand why it's foolish.
Yeah, and
so Carolina needs to defy that.
Yeah, and you're looking at teams now. You only have a few more chances at quad 1 wins.
At Mississippi State, LSU.
Georgia was a quad 2 win, which is good for South Carolina.
Georgia was a quad 2 win?
Because it's on the road.
They're yeah.
And
they're 80 something.
Currently, they were 90th going into the game.
Oh, 90. Okay, so they're 100
and
probably.
Slipped to 98th. But that's still
right. That's because quad 2 cut off on the road's what, like 150?
130.
150,
130, something like
okay,
that.
Cool.
But it's enough to still be comfortably a quad 2 win right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what Arkansas is. And granted,
Arkansas
it's on the road.
Falling off a cliff lately.
Help. But it's on the road. They're 44th, which is still comfortably quad 1.
Yeah,
especially
good.
on the road.
That's good.
Yeah, they'd have to drop 30 more spots for them not to be. So the bottom would almost literally have to fall out from their season. But it's just stupid, and you have only a few more chances. Tennessee would be a quad 2 win if they won, obviously, since it's at home. Mississippi State would be comfortably quad 1.
LSU comfortably quad.
Borderline right now. They're 27th in the net.
Oh, right, and that one being
cut
at
off
home?
would be 30.
Oh, wow.
For that. Which, like, Kentucky slipped to a quad 2 win for, 2 weeks. Georgia at home would be a quad. Oh, Lord. I think it would be quad, borderline quad 2.
Like quad 2, quad 3?
Yeah, quad 2, quad 3, depending on where they are.
At Alabama, probably solidly quad 2.
Quad 1.
Quad 1?
They're 42nd in the net.
42nd?
I haven't updated my spreadsheet.
You will, and y'all
today.
can read it on Gamecock Central. Alabama's 13-11.
39th in the net. They moved up yesterday.
They're 13-11?
But
why?
Because they're freaking efficiency numbers.
They have one good win over Auburn.
But they're top 40 in offensive efficiency and top 75 in defensive efficiency.
Their next best win after Auburn is probably, I guess they beat Mississippi State early in
They
SEC.
beat Mississippi State. Do you want to know their next 2 best wins?
Were you going to say the Richmond Spiders?
They're 60th in net, or 60th or 57th in KenPom, and Furman is 68th in KenPom. They have 2
Hey,
other.
go Dens. That's cool. Yeah,
Shout
I guess
out.
Richmond's 18-6.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I'm like too far down the rabbit hole of, well, who did they beat? Well, who did they beat? Who did they beat? Point is, that's stupid.
You could drive yourself insane doing that.
I am. I am in the process of doing so right now. I guess that's good news for Carolina that Alabama can still be a quad 1 win for them because that gives them,
And
for
then
sure, 2 opportunities, borderline 3 opportunities, depending on what happens with LSU.
And then Mississippi State at home would be a quad 2, and then Vanderbilt would be, I believe, a quad 3 or
5.
4. Feels like it.
Yeah, although they did beat LSU. And they played Kentucky closer than John Calipari would have liked the other night. Quick checklist update for Carolina. Go 2-3 in your first 5 games. Check.
Done.
Go 4-1 in your next 5. Check.
Done.
5-3 in Carolina's last 8 would put them in a position where 1 or 2 conference tournament wins puts them in the conversation. 6-2 puts them in the conversation. 1 or 2 conference tournament wins would put them over the top. Anything better, and you're pretty much going to be in, especially given the quality of what those extra wins would have to mean. So, if we say baseline 5-3, 1 down, Carolina now needs to go 4-3 in their next 7 games, and winning against Tennessee, Georgia again, either at Alabama or Mississippi State at home, and Vanderbilt. Those are all games that you should feel reasonably
There
good
is
about
a
winning.
feasible, and if South Carolina plays well, do you really think they can't beat somebody?
I mean, we just saw LSU lose to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And that was on the road for LSU, I mean. So, coming to Colonial Life
There
Arena.
is, I mean, if they play well, then they have a chance to beat anybody. They're projected by KenPom, which is not an exact science, obviously, to finish.
KenPom's been wrong, I think, in every single Carolina game this year.
Yeah, that's fair. But they based off of all the analytical
Right.
stuff, and so they're predicting South Carolina to finish 11-7 in SEC play.
Cool.
Total.
That's kind of what we thought.
And that would make them
11-7, and they're 7-4 right now. So that means they go 4 and
4-3 down the stretch.
Hey, that's
5-3
what we
last
just
year.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would put them at 19-12.
So you got to win 1 game in the tournament for sure. 2 gives you a really strong argument.
Yes.
And 11-7 probably puts you in like the 5 or 6 seed, so you're only getting 1 bye,
Which is
I would guess,
good.
which is probably good for Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you need numbers.
Yeah. And you need Whew. And that probably puts you comfortably in the NIT.
Hey,
At least.
the not invited tournament. Yay!
But
It's postseason play,
it's postseason play. It gives you a chance to have some extra practices. Frank Martin would love that.
and
If he doesn't get into obviously, that's the number 1 goal.
you're only losing Mike Coates next year because I'm still not convinced that AJ's going to be gone, and you're bringing in 7th Woods.
Hold on. You are losing Micaiah Henry.
Oh yeah, Mike.
Give him
Henry.
some credit.
Yeah,
you
sorry
have,
about that.
it's going to create, I'm sure we'll talk about this wrapping up on the postseason once the season's over, but you're in a very interesting spot if AJ decides to come back.
It's a good problem to have for Carolina
Well, scholarship-wise, it's very interesting.
because right now 7th is a walk-on.
But the promise was, remember, he was going to go on scholarship,
Right.
and they have 2 guys coming in this class signed.
And only 1 scholarship, or they'll have 2 scholarships because Micaiah and Mike.
Leave.
That clears up some of the Mike room.
Yes.
But yeah, that would.
Then you
create
have the 2
information.
bigs coming in, and Patrick Ariel and Javon Benson.
Wow.
And if AJ doesn't leave and stays, then you're kind of in a very interesting spot with that.
All right. We'll save that for the offseason. What happens on Saturday?
The net's still stupid.
Death, taxes, net is stupid.
I think South Carolina wins.
What's the bellwether of Saturday's game? You're still getting 35 points from your backcourt. Bank it.
Yes. You're going to have to explain
You're
bellwether
getting 10
to me
from Mike
because
Coates.
I am.
Huh?
You're going to have to explain bellwether to me because I am sleep deprived and I'm only.
I
halfway
think
through my cup
bellwether
of
is just
coffee.
like what's going like a bellwether is
I
an
sound
indicator
stupid
or
asking
something.
that.
No, not at all. Someone else asked me that the other day. I think that might be like an uncommon phrase, or like an old people phrase, or like maybe. Like
I say a lot of old people phrases, and you can ask my fiance about that.
Yeah, I don't mean to say old people phrase.
Oh no,
in
no,
a
no,
pejorative
no.
way. I just mean it might be a dated idiom.
I'd say dated idioms all the time. You can ask my fiance all the time. She's like, "You sound so stupid when you talk."
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, maybe I say stupid, but
Um,
the like an indicator of how the game goes. Like Mike Coates is going to give you 10. Jermaine and AJ are going to give you 35. That gets Carolina to 45. What do they need to do to get to 70? Is this a big Frink game? Does Bryant have probably his first I'm going to double check this while I'm rambling because I don't know if Keyshawn has had back-to-back games of double-digit scoring this year, and he, in fact, has not. So is this the first time this year that Keyshawn has back-to-back double-digit scoring games?
Probably.
Is this a Trey Hannibal, a little bit of a rebound game?
If South Carolina out-rebounds Tennessee, I think they win this game, especially in the offensive glass.
There's so many things that you look at in the first Tennessee game and say, well, if Carolina doesn't shoot terribly from the free throw line and terribly from three and terribly from the field and turn the ball over a lot and get nothing from AJ, then they would have won that game. But Tennessee also did not play particularly well in that game.
And Jordan Bowden went like 0 for forever, run for forever.
It's a
with Justin Minaj guarding him.
I don't want to say like chance at revenge for both teams because obviously, Tennessee won that one.
Rick Barnes has had kind of South Carolina's number.
He has, and it's been in a lot of different ways. Like sometimes they're just better. Sometimes they just have one guy that kills Carolina.
The Admiral Schofield.
The Admiral Schofield kind of game. And interestingly, last game it was Jordan Fulkerson who went, I think, 15-10 that game. That's like the one kind of smudge on Mike Kotsar's Defensive Player of the Year resume. And that's not a
Fulkerson's had a pretty okay.
Yeah, he's been good, but it's like he's played a lot better big men and had a lot better game. So it's funny that that's the one that kind of sticks out.
Yeah.
So I think maybe Mike having a bounce back game defensively and on the glass will be a real indicator of how this game goes Saturday.
South Carolina hasn't beaten Tennessee since the Final Four year.
That sounds right. Wow. So don't bank this game Saturday, like I told y'all to the Georgia game last night. But still won the Carolina can win. Yeah. Bowden went 1 of 17.
Yeah, 1 for forever.
And 1 of 12 from 3. So that's probably not going to happen again.
Do you want to cast?
Pond went 0 of 7.
Yeah, like you're going to get a better performance from Tennessee. You're playing better at this point too. You're kind of figuring out your identity. Kusnar's obviously your mouthpiece and your kiss blower. So you feel good about where you are team-wise in terms of just what you're getting on a day in and day out basis.
Other little bit of bad news. Again, this is such a hard game to predict because both teams are so different
even.
And they're even. They're different now than they were, and neither of them had great games then. So you still feel like it's gonna. If they both have great games, it's still going to be even. If they both have bad games, it's still going to be even. That was only Santiago Vescovi's third game, and he was still turning the ball over. After that Carolina game, he was averaging 7 turnovers a game, and he still turns the ball over a little bit. But his last 5 games have been 2, 3, 1, 3, and 3 turnovers. So he still turns it over a lot, but he shoots a lot. He shoots a lot of threes.
He also had 8 assists against Arkansas.
Yeah, he does that. It's a lot of dimes. It's a lot of turnovers.
It's what you get from a freshman that's in his 3rd week of college basketball.
Right. So you can't bank on those turnovers necessarily for South Carolina. I really don't know what to expect. I would say Mike Kotsar defensively is going to be the difference, and how much scoring can Carolina cobble from its bench? Can Jalen give you another 6 to 10? Can Jair Bolden have a bounce-back game in terms of his shooting efficiency? If he has 4, you feel like this is close. Maybe Tennessee wins. If he has a 12 to 15 heat-checky kind of game coming off the bench in 20 minutes, that could very well be the difference. It's like Carolina needs 1 or 2 of these margins or marginal kind of performances from a bench guy to win this game, it feels like.
Do you want to do reverse jinxes now?
Yeah, let's do it.
We haven't done that in a couple ones.
I know. It's worked out okay, but
yeah,
I should have buried the lead a little more because I think y'all know where I'm going.
You didn't go to. No, it's a USC school of journalism tactic. You gotta.
I know.
Get the lead up there in the nut graph.
All right,
ready? Which is an actual term, by the way.
Nut graph.
Nut graph.
All right.
Thought you'd enjoy that.
Y'all workshop the jokes in the thread on GamecockCentral.com and the Insiders Forum.
Yeah.
All right, ready?
All right. Are we doing 3, 2, 1, then go?
3, 2, 1, then go.
Okay.
But I'm not going to say go. You just go.
You just go at that point. Okay.
3, 2, 1. Jair Bolden. Keyshawn. Yeah.
Not in terms of just reverse jinxes, but
12 and 6,
consistency. Yeah.
14 and 8.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple times.
If he goes 12 and 5 again with 5 rebounds and maybe 1 turnover instead of 2, and hits 4 free throws again, feel pretty good about what you're getting.
Jair is Carolina's Devin Cambridge, but fortunately not so extreme because he'll at least score for the most part when he's not on. But 22 against Virginia, that was his kind of coming out party. 19 against A&M. He missed that Kentucky game. That's right. Scored 13 against Vanderbilt. He had a nice 12 against Arkansas. An important 12 points, obviously, because Carolina just wins that one by 2. And then since then, 5 points, 0 points, 8 points, 3 points. Hasn't had double digits since that Arkansas win. and he can go off. He's kind of a microwave. He hits 2 threes, and then he's probably going to hit 4 or 5.
Yes.
That feels like he could be kind of the difference. And at home, let's see. Arkansas had a good game on the road. Vanderbilt, good game at home. Most of his good games have actually been on the road this year, so maybe shouldn't count on that. I should have done my research beforehand, but whatever. Jair Bolden, go have a good game. Make me look like I'm smart on Tuesday.
Devin Cambridge just scored 31 points in 6 games after going off.
Well, that was 4 scoreless games and then 21, and then he had
10 against Alabama.
Yeah, that's right. That was a weird game. 16-0. Auburn was up early on Alabama. It was cut to 4 at half, and then Auburn had to win it in overtime. Their 3rd straight overtime game and their 5th overtime game of the season. Glutton for punishments. The Auburn Tigers
this year.
It is.
Yeah, let's break down the SEC before we get off.
Yeah.
Here. Man, I just sound like Frank Martin there. Put my foot in my mouth. Before we get off, let's talk about the SEC. Kentucky at 9-2 in the conference. Auburn at 9-2 in the conference. LSU at 9-2 in the conference. 2-game gap. Florida at 7-4. South Carolina at 7-4. Mississippi State at 6-5. Tennessee at 6-5. You have half the league within 3 games of each other.
And a lot of matchups to be played between the rest of this.
South Carolina and Mississippi State have another game to play.
Yeah, Carolina's got to play LSU and Mississippi State twice, and Tennessee and Alabama.
Yeah.
This could be almost completely flipped upside down 7 games from now.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to be because Auburn and Kentucky and LSU were sort of at the top of the conference for a reason. But Florida, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Alabama, I'm not going to put A&M in there. I'm even hesitant to put Bama in there. And Arkansas, they're just 4-7 in conference, and like I said, they've been in a little bit of a free fall.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal is with them. Would I be surprised to see any of those teams in any order? Not really.
And South Carolina right now, if the season ended today, they'd be the 5 seed.
There you go. It's the best case scenario because you get to play another game, which helps you.
The 5 seed
and
plays
it's the best possible one.
Like the 11 seed, and right now the 11 seed is
5 plays the 12, right? And then 6-11, and then 7-10 and 8-9.
13 and 12 play, or 13 and it's like a weird because you have the first round with 2 games, and then the second round.
But 2 teams don't make it, right?
No, 2 teams make it.
Do they have like a play-in game?
Yeah, they have like one weird playing. Yeah, so 12 and 13 play, and then 11 and 14 play. So if you're the 5, if you're the 5.
Oh yeah, wait, 11 and 14 and 12 and 13.
Yeah, the 2 playing games. So the 5 seed will play the winner of the 12 and 13 game, and the 6 seed would play the winner of the 11 and 14.
The 2 teams not make the baseball tournament?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, I knew I wasn't making that up. I guess it's just not basketball.
If South Carolina would be the 5 seed currently because they would lose the tiebreaker to Florida, then they would play the 12 and 13 seed. So the winner of that game currently, that would be the winner of the Missouri and Georgia game.
Winner of Missouri and Georgia? You feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, you feel confident.
You beat those teams by a combined, 500 points?
Yeah, feels
like approximately.
Also,
they beat Missouri by 26, 24?
Like that, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Let's talk about the fact that South Carolina has 7 wins in SEC play. 5 have been by double digits, and the other 2 are considered quad 1 wins.
It's pretty good. And the 4 losses, a 20-point loss to Ole Miss, a terrible loss to Tennessee that you should not have lost, a 20-point loss to Auburn, and a 17, 16-point loss, or 13, or whatever it was to Florida.
2 teams that are going to be in the tournament in Florida and
Auburn.
Auburn, more than likely. Tennessee's...
That one hurts. That one sticks out. Oh, gosh, that one sticks out.
Tennessee's an NIT team, probably. Yeah.
And then the Ole Miss game, that one just stunk, but that's not one that you feel bad about because Carolina was never going to win that game. No. At least the way that it played out.
They literally had God on there.
I know. Yeah. Did we make that joke enough when we did the Ole Miss podcast? I don't think we did. You mentioned it.
Just once.
Just once. We should have made that joke more. Missed opportunity.
Also, I got another bobblehead last night.
Oh, it
was a Nick Claxton.
Nick Claxton, yeah. I saw Mike Morgan talking about that on the podcast.
So
or on the podcast, the broadcast.
2 bobbleheads.
That's pretty good. It's a good year for you.
We're racking up.
You think Mississippi State going to have one? Just an egg bobblehead?
Mike Leach bobblehead.
Would Mike Leach bobblehead night beat South Carolina?
Mike Leach is a bobblehead in and of himself.
You better hope that Mike Leach isn't in the house, though, because that's like one step down below Morgan Freeman in terms of good mojo for the team.
Yes.
All right. Well, you're going to be at the Colonial Life Arena on Saturday.
Yes.
You're going to be in Starkville on
double duty.
Oh, Starkville's that's Wednesday, and then the home Starkville is on Tuesday.
Yes. It's the only Tuesday night.
Right. I remember looking because it's obviously always Tuesday, Wednesday, and I was thrilled to find out that South Carolina was all Wednesday, Saturday for all of SEC play except for the final Mississippi State game, just because it makes it easier for us to do this. Yep. It's like the week that we do Mississippi State the second time, that podcast. That'll probably be on Monday. But anyway, that's behind the scenes talk. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to this podcast and everything on the Gamecock Central Podcast Network. Read Collyn on GamecockCentral.com and follow him on Twitter at Collyn Taylor the Y. Follow me on Twitter at Pearson Fowler. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we'll be back on Tuesday.